Birth in the Middle Ages was a moment both fragile and holy. Life began not in silence, but in prayer and hope, with fear pressing close beside, a cry in the night, the glow of a rushlight, the hurried steps of a midwife. These rocked the beginning of a child's story. Midwives were guardians of life by threshold. They came swiftly when wounded, carrying small bundles of cloth, bowls of warm water, and herbs thought to ease pain. Their hands were skilled, their words steady, their prayers whispered, birds much for the mother, for the infant, yet unseen. Mothers labored not in hospitals but in cottages, surrounded by kin and neighbors. Straw was spread on floors, water warmed in kettles, prayers murmured by women there near. The birth of a child was not private, but shared by the village, a moment of both fear and wonder. When the child's first cry rose, relief swept through the room. The midwife lifted the infant, washed gently in warm water, and swaddled in strips of linen. A small face blinked at flicker of firelight, and those watching crossed themselves in gratitude. But danger was never far. Many infants were weak, many mothers exhausted. The Church taught that baptism should come swiftly, for no life was guaranteed. A priest was often hard within hours or days to pour water, speak sacred words, and claim the child for Christ. The baptism rite was a moment of deep assurance. Villages these, candles flickering, water glistening in fawn. The child, wrapped and carried, was touched with sign of the cross. Names were spoken, often those of saints, binding the infant into family of faith. Names carried hope. A boy might be healed John, Martin, or Nicholas, a girl Mary, Bridget, or Agnes. Each name was a prayer that the saint virtue would guide the child, a mantle of protection for life's uncertain road. Godparents stood in second parents, promising to guide soul's welded body. Their role was serious, binding families together, weaving webs of kinnin that extended across generations. To be chosen godparent was honor and responsibility alike. After baptism, the child was welcomed home with quiet feasting. Neighbors brought bread, mothers shared stories, fathers gave thanks. The simplest cottage seemed filled with light, for new life was joy too rare to be taken lightly. Infants were swaddled tightly, wrapped in cloths to keep them safe and warm. Cradles rocked gently by hearth, lullabies hummed, candles flickered, did mothers soothe the restless cries. The rhythm of childhood began, close to fire, close to family. The first days were full of fragility. Fevers struck quickly, winters bit hard, milk sometimes failed, yet each small breath was counted blessing, each cry sign of strength, each step forward proof that God had given life to endure. Villagers often saw signs in a childbirth. If born at dawn, it was thought fortunate. If born during storm, perhaps rocked for hardship. Elders read omen in timing, weather, and cries weaving superstition and hope together. Mothers whispered prayers over infants, tracing crosses on brows, tucking relics or charms into swaddling. These gestures were small shields against unseen dangers, proofs of love and faith intertwined. Children were not born into solitude but into community. Neighbors visited, siblings dads, elders blessed. Each child was seen, they's gift not only to family but to village, a new thread in the tapestry of life. Fathers, though less present in birth, carried pride and duty. They laped children, promised to feed and guide, and offered thanks at church altar. Their strength balanced the mother care, joining household into unity. The church reminded all that each birth was miracle. To bring forth life was to see God's hand at work, to watch mystery unfold in small face and fragile breath, awe mingled with fear, reverence with love. In winter, births were hardest, cottages cold, nights long, herbs scarce, yet even in frost, joy warmed hearts when infants survived. Villagers believed saints drew close in such times, wrapping fragile souls with unseen care. Spring births carried hope. Flowers budded, lambs bleated, streams ran swift. To be born in spring was thought lucky, a sign of abundance and growth. Families rejoiced with double joy, new child and new season together. Infants were seen veins holy in innocence. Their cries were pure, their laughter angelic. The church taught that children mirrored heaven, untouched yet by sin, small glimpses of paradise dwelling in cottages. Baptisma morals were often saved, handed down, patched and resayed across generations. To wear cloth once blessed was thought to pass protection from elder to child, weaving history into fabric. When infants were ill, mothers walled saints' names. Nicholas, patron of children, was invoked most often. Small shrines bore candles for sick little ones, prayers rising like smoke toward heaven. Caudles often stood near hearth, warmth mingling with glow of light. Parents rocked infants, stories were told, lullabies woven from faith and folklore. Childhood began in warmth of home and sound of song. Not all children survived, and grief was heavy, yet even in loss, faith offered comfort that baptized infants were safe in heaven, angels before God. This belief gave parents strength, easing sorrow with hope. Children who survived their first fragile years were celebrated. Each birthday was not rocked with feasts, but with gratitude. Quiet thanks whispered, candles lit in church, bread shared at home. So life began, not with certainty, but with blessing. To be born in medieval world was to enter a path both perilous and wondrous, guided by family, guarded by saints, embraced by faith. Thus childhood story opened with birth fragile, holy, shared by community. Each infant was hope reborn, each cry a hymn of life. Each blessing a promise of eternity hidden in small hands. Mothers rocked cradles with feet, they spun wool or kneaded dough, hands always busy, yet voices soft with song. The lullabies were simple, half prayer, half melody, woven from fragments of faith and folk tale. Each note wrapped the child in calm. The hearth was more than warmth, it was life's center. Fire, baked bread, boiled broth, dried cloth lit the night. Children grew hearing its crackle, feeling its glow, watching shadows dance along walls. Their earliest memories were of flame, gentle flicker. Caudles were carved with care, some plain and adorned with simple patterns, all sturdy enough to last through many children. Families passed them down like heirlooms, each infant rocking in the same frame where parents once lay. Infants were swaddled tightly in linen strips. The wrapping kept limbs straight, soothed restlessness, and made carrying easier. To modern eyes it seems confining, but to medieval mothers it meant safety, order, and comfort. Children often shared the hearth with animals. Cats curled near warm stones, dogs stretched by the fire, chickens dozed in corners. Infants grew up among beasts, these well-led kin, learning early the closeness of creature and human life. Fathers, too, leaned over cradles. After long hours in field or workshop, they tight small hands, whispered names, traced signs of cross on brows. These quiet moments bound families, teaching children love before speech. Siblings hovered curiously. Older sisters rocked cradles. Brothers tickled small toes. Laughter mingled with baby cries. Responsibility began early, and children learned care by watching and helping. The cradle taught lessons of gentleness. At night, the cradle was shielded against dark. Rushlights burned low, embers glowed, and mothers whispered prayers for angels to guard sleep. Tales of spirits and demons made protection feel urgent, yet faith softened fear. Infants were soothed with charms. Small relics hung above cradles, herbs tucked in corners, ribbons tied for luck. Each token was gesture of hope, proof of love expressed through superstition and belief alike. The sounds of hearth shaped early childhood, crackling flames, whirring spinning wheel, soft chanting of psalms, clatter of pots. These were lullabies much for songs. Infants drifted to sleep within rhythm of daily life. Mothers whispered stories with rocked, tales of saints, of Christ child, of village wonders. Infants could not understand words, but tone of voice planted peace, weaving seeds of faith long before memory. In winter, the cradle was kept close to fire. Snow outside, frost on windows, breath steaming in air, but within warmth glowed, swaddled bodies snug against cold. Survival depended on nearness to hearth. In summer, cradles were carried outdoors. Infants lay beneath trees, lulled by birdsong and breeze. Mothers worked nearby, spinning or tending garn, watching children with eyes sharp despite weary hands. The cradle was never far from work. Women sang while laboring, Men spoke gently during meals, siblings peeked in between chores. Life flowed around cradle, never howl yet always including the child within. Sometimes infants slept in Pan's beds, tucked close for warmth. Families huddled together in small cottages, body heat shared through night. Yet the cradle remained symbol of childhood, first space belonging to the infant alone. Children often received wooden toys in cradle, carved animals, whistles, beads strung on cords. These rattled in tiny hands, teaching play from earliest days. Fathers and brothers often carved such gifts, tokens of love. The hearth was place of first steps. Infants pulled up on benches, toddled toward firelight, stumbled into arms of waiting kin. First laughter, first falls, first triumphs, unfolded in glow of embers. The villagers believed hearth carried blessing. To place cradle near fire was to guard child with holy warmth. The flame itself was gift of God, light in darkness, shield against spirits. As children grew, cradle gave way to simple mats or shared beds with siblings. Yet memory of rocking, warmth of hearth, and voices singing lingered, foundation of trust carried forward. Mothers cherished time at cradle. Though weary, they poured love into small gestures, smoothing hair, humming songs, whispering prayers. For many, it was tenderest part of life, fleeting yet unforgettable. Elders often said, as cradle is rocked, so biz life go. Gentle beginnings were thought to shape gentle souls, rough beginnings stronger ones. The cradle was mirror of future. Children blessed at cradle were believed to thrive. Priests sprinkled water, mothers traced crosses, fathers whispered saints' names. Faith clung to infancy, planting roots for years to come. Illness struck often, yet cradle became place of healing. Herbs brewed, relics touched, lullabies sung more urgently. Families watched through nights praying for dawn with infants still breathing. The hearth was Wade's first laughter rang. A child giggle joined crackle of fire, lifting spirits, softening weariness. In laughter, parents felt reward for sleepless nights and endless work. Thus, cradle and hearth were not only furniture and fire, but symbols of love, community, and survival. Childhood began there, wrapped in warmth and prayer, soothed by song, watched by flame. So the story of childhood unfolded, beginning at cradle, glowing by hearth, nurtured by family and faith. From these small beginnings, souls grew toward lifelong journey. Beyond the cradle, beyond the hearth, children stepped into the wide world of the village. Here their days unfolded among animals, fields, and neighbors. We'd work and play mingled in the rhythm of daily life. The village was a living classroom, paths between cottages, lanes filled with hits, fields humming with bees. These were lessons before books. Children learned not by reading, but by watching, imitating, and joining in. Animals were their first companions. Chickens scattered and his little feet chased them. Geese hissed and flapped. Lambs bleated and tugged at hems. Children fed pigs with scraps, laid eggs from nests, stroked cats curled in barns. Toddlers tottered after older siblings, clutching stick staffs. They learned to shoe geese, fetch water, carry wood. Each small task was both play and training, preparing them for heavier duties ahead. Mothers up children to gardens. They picked herbs, pulled weeds, and scattered seeds. Tiny hands grew strong through labor, and tiny minds grew wise through watching seasons turn. Fathers sometimes led sons to fields. Boys carried small bundles, chased crows from seed, or guided oxen a few steps before stumbling in laughter. Each moment was seed of future skill. Girls helped spin wool, stir pots, and fetch kindling. They cradled younger siblings, carried baskets, stirred cauldrons with oversized spoons. Their play was woven into chores, laughter mingling with labor. Neighbors watched children kindly. Elders smiled, they little ones tumbled, gave apples or honey cakes, told stories at benches. Childhood was communal, not owned by family alone, but by village days whole. The lanes were playgrounds. Children ran barefoot over cobbles, tossed balls of cloth, played tag between huts. Dust rose, laughter echoed, chickens flapped indignantly, life pulsed with joy. Water drew children always. They splashed in streams, floated sticks, boats, watched reflections in ripples. Older ones fetched buckets, teaching balance with every trip, learning patience from spills. Winter turned play into survival. Children carried wood, kept fires burning, stamped snow from paths, yet even then they made games from snowballs, sleds of wood, icy races along frozen lanes. Then the festivals brought color. Children followed processions, carried flowers, sang hymns with voices high and sweet, their wonder lit faces brighter than candles, their joy lifted festivals into laughter. Elders often taught by story. Sitting on benches, they told tales of saints, kings, and beasts. Children listened wide-eyed, straw between fingers, memories sinking deeper than any book could. Quarrel came quickly. A doll snatched, a goose chased too far, a careless shove, yet reconciliation were swift, laughter returned, hands clasped. Games began anew. Childhood taught not only work, but forgiveness. Hunger shadowed wooden days. Children learned early to value bread, to eat sparingly, to save crumbs. They knew joy of feasts, but also ache of emptiness, a lesson written deep in bones. Chores shaped days, water fetched, firewood stacked, fields weeded. Children's hands were never idle, yet work was part of play, for even burdens were carried with laughter. Animals taught patience. Calvers pulled ropes, conkeys braid, hets pecked fingers. Children learned to wait, to coax, to soothe. These skills grew into gentleness, shaping how they cared for kin. Sometimes danger intruded, a cow kicked, a stream ran swift, a fall cut skin, but village life was forgiving. Mothers bandaged, fathers scolded, neighbors helped. Lessons came through pain, but softened by care. Children were part of every soundscape. Their shouts echoed with bells, their songs blended with larks, their cries mixed with bleating lambs. Village life was symphony of voices, young and old together. Market days were wonders. Children gaped at bright cloth, sweetmeats, puppets. They darted through crowds, wide-eyed at jugglers clutching small coins for trifles. The market was cool of marvel. Seasons shaped their games, spring-born daisy chains and skipping songs. Summer offered rivers to splash. Autumn gave piles of leaves. Winter brought snow and shadow plays by firelight. Elders sometimes warned sternly, "Do not stray too far, do not wander at dusk." Forests and marshes were feared, and children learned boundaries from both caution and tale. Friendships grew strong, companions in chores became partners in games, and allies in youth. Childhood bonds often stretched into marriages, trades, and lifelong trust. Children laughter softened toil, fields echoed with songs, cottages rang with play. Hardships seemed lighter when small voices filled air with joy. Even weary elders smiled at such signs. At night, children returned to hearths, cheeks smudged with dust, eyes heavy with sleep. Mothers wiped faces, fathers lifted into beds, siblings whispered good night. The village grew quiet, but joy lingered. Thus childhood in the village was not idle but full of work and laughter, tears and song, chores and play. Each day shaped small souls, weaving them into fabric of community. So children of the village grew strong and wise, learning first lessons from Hiffit fields, neighbors, and bells. Their world was humble, yet filled with wonder, preparing them for life ahead. Amid chores and lessons, children always found time for play. Their games echoed through lanes, meadows, and hearths, filling the medieval world with laughter. Simple toys, shared songs, and playful contests shaped childhood seeds, surely they's work and prayer. Wooden toys were among the first treasures. Fathers carved animals, carts, or spinning tops from scraps of wood. Dolls were fashioned from cloth or straw, dressed in bits of wool. Each toy carried marks of handwork, unique and cherished. Balls were made of leather, stuffed with rags. Children tossed them in lanes, kicked them in fields, or chased them between cottages. Laughter, rose veins games grew wild, neighbors smiling at noisy delight. Hoops rolled along dusty paths, pushed with sticks by eager hands. The race of hoop and child became contest of speed and skill, each tumble greeted with laughter. Whistles and flutes were carved from reeds. Children blew simple tunes, filling air with piping notes. Their melodies were rough but joyful, a kind of music that turned meadows into concert halls. Singing game bound children together. They formed circles, clapped hands, and chanted rhymes passed from elder to child. Voices rose in playful harmony, weaving rhythm into memory. Hide and seek was timeless. Children darted behind haystacks, crouched in barns, slipped into shadows of cottages. Shouts of discovery rang, followed by laughter and races to new hiding places. Tag was favorite in every season. Bare feet slapped cobbles, hands stretched, giggles echoed. The game was chase and escape, joy and speed woven into daily rhythm. Mimicry filled hours. Children played at being priests, merchants, or knights. They lifted sticks, swords, draped cloaks, vestments, sold pebbles as coins. Play rehearsed life, teaching roles through laughter. In winter, snow brought delight. Children rolled balls into figures, hurled handfuls in mock battles, slid on frozen ponds with shouts of glee. Cold was forgotten in warmth of play. Autumn leaves became toys. Pies of gold and red were scattered, tossed, and buried in. Children leapt into heaps, laughter crackling louder than dry leaves. Spring meadows offered daisies and dandelions. Children wove chains of flowers, crowned one another as kings and queens of play. Simple blossoms became symbols of joy. Festivals multiplied games. Puppet shows held children spellbound, jugglers amazed, minstrels drew them into dance. Children darted through crowds, sticky with honey cakes, dazzled by color and sound. Contests tested skill, boys threw stones at marks, raced barefoot along paths, wrestled in circles. Girls sang riddles, braided ribbons, balanced jugs on heads. Each play prepared bodies and minds for work ahead. Animals joined gaze, dogs chased balls, cats pounced on ribbons, lambs skipped in mimicry of children. Creatures became companions, sharing joy, feely-veen playmates. Laughter softened burdens of village. Parents smiled as they heard songs. Neighbors paused in chores. Elders nodded at echoes of their own childhood. Play was gift, not only to children, but to community. Children, some made toys from nothing. A pebble became coin, a stick a sword, a feather a banner. Imagination was richer than any market stall, turning scraps into treasures. Older siblings often led games, guiding younger ones with patience. Bonds deepened through play, quarrels forgotten in laughter, friendships rooted in joy. Even chores turned playful. Fetching water became race. Sweeping paths became contest. Tending geese became comedy. Work was softened when woven with bees. Stories inspired play. After hearing tales of saints or knights, children acted them out in fields. Battles were fought with sticks, miracles performed with gestures, villains defeated with shouts of triumph. At dusk, games slowed, children lived to sing quiet songs, toss balls gently, or sit in groups whispering secrets. The day noise softened into evening peace. Some games carried hints of future. Boys practiced archery with small bows. Girls wove garlands or carried water jars. What began Ben play grew into skill. Life rehearsed in laughter. Parents sometimes joined. Fathers tossed children in air. Mothers clapped in songs. Elders taught riddles. Play bridged generations, reminding all that joy was timeless. Winter nights brought indoor games. Children played with shadows on walls, rolled dice carved from bone, told riddles by firelight. Laughter warmed rooms, surely we flame. Prayers closed. Play. Mothers, ye children, led silence, traced crosses on brows, families' death at hearth. The day ended with blessing, even laughter wrapped in faith. Thus Abel's play were not idle, but vital. They taught skill, deepened bonds, and filled childhood with delight. In laughter, children found strength. In play, they rehearsed life. So the medieval village rang with giggles, songs, and contests. Play was the breath of childhood, weaving joy into every day, echoing long into memory. Play filled much of childhood, yet learning began early too. Children grew not in schools of books and pens, but in schools of memory, prayer, and craft. Knowledge came through ears, eyes, and hands, passed from elders, priests, and masters, woven into daily life. The first lessons were prayers. Mothers taught little ones to fold hands, trace crosses on brows, whisper words of Our Father and Hail Mary. Children stumbled on syllables, yet faith was planted in repetition. Fathers added their lessons at hearth and field. They yaped tools, pointed out stars, told stories of saints and kings. Sons learned the feel of plough handles, the weight of hammer, the names of constellation, guiding journeys. Girls learned from mothers and grandmothers. They spun wool on small spindles, stirred pots with care, ded the herbs for healing. Each task carried lore, which herbs eased fevers, which prayers guarded travelers, which customs worked holy days. Stories were the village library. Elders told tales of saints who tamed dragons, of kings who ruled with justice, of sinners who found mercy. Around hearths, memory kept history alive when books were rare. Children listened, wide-eyed, voices hushed, straw crackling beneath them. Each tale sank deep, shaping morals and imagination, planting seeds of courage and devotion. In villages, schools stood near churches. The babies learned to read Latin letters, to chant psalms, to copy words with ink on parchment. Few but afford this path, but those who did often became clerks, priests, or scribes. Girls were less often sent to such schools, but her noble daughters learned to read prayers, to write names, to sing hymns with precision. Knowledge was gift unevenly shared, yet always treasured. Most children learned by apprenticeship. Boys were bound to masters of craft. Blacksmiths, coopers, weavers, bakers, girls were taught spinning, brewing, midwifery, or service in noble houses. Law was passed hand to hand. Apprenticeship began early. A boy of 7 might stand and forge, watching sparks fly. A girl of 8 might carry baskets to loom, feeling warp and with childhood blended into work. Through such teaching, learning was not only skill but story. Masters told tales of craft origins, linking tools to saints, seasons to faith. To learn weaving was to hear of Seat Anne. To learn farming was to hear parables of seed and harvest. Children memorized songs, lessons, rhymes taught numbers, chants taught prayers, riddles taught wit, knowledge was carried in rhythm, easier to recall when woven into tune. Elders often taught outdoors. They pointed to herbs in meadows, tracks in mud, clouds in sky. Children learned weather from clouds, time from shadows, healing from plants. Fields were classroom, earth the book. Not on lessons were gentle. A mistake at forge brought burns, a slip in field caused falls, a misstep in kitchen spilled boiling broth. Pain became teacher, scars became memory. Res become the dantes, the lepri, the tutor, the rants, loans, kilder, the kids, the nantovix, and the hard order was Nike's soldier and Sparrow and the Hamdasholka. Bound by majority, they also held the words van the drie in the morgen with the hurry, the fruit, the layers, and nulka, the sancer and dice, the trough tower church. There, the Timpani had the house and scarf, small as any. This is against the ancient fall pain. The mule messing small. Why? Festivals carried lore, songs sung in procession, taught stories of saints, banners painted with symbols, explained holy truths. Plays performed in squares taught scripture to young and old alike. Children absorbed wisdom not only from words but from rhythm of life. Bells rocked hours, seasons shaped work, holy days patterned the year. Learning was not apart from living, but woven into it. Lullabies carried lore well. Mothers sang of saints, angels, and prayers, planting faith into dreams. Even infants absorbed rhythm of devotion before memory could hold words. Boys dreamed of becoming knights or monks. Girls dreamed of weaving fine cloth or serving noble houses. Ambitions grew from stories told, from examples seen, from whispers of elders. Not on became what they dreamed, yet dreams shaped effort and effort shaped skill. Lore was compass, guiding choices even when roads changed. Elders reminded children that knowledge was gift from God. To know herb or prayer, to read, let, or craft wood, was to honor creation. Wisdom was never idle, but sacred. At night, families tested children's memory. Fathers asked riddles, mothers asked prayers, elders told tales and asked for retelling. Memory was sharpened by practice, wit by challenge. In cloisters, Monks copied books by candlelight. Few children saw such work, but stories of it spread, filling imagination with reverence for written word. To hold a book was to hold treasure. Children, some scratched letters on wax tablets or drew shapes in dirt. Even when schools were far, curiosity drove practice. Every mark was step toward literacy, rare but prized. Friendships shaped learning too. Children taught each other songs, tricks, and small skills. What one mastered, all shared. Knowledge flowed like water, widening through laughter. So lore lived on in libraries, but in voices, songs, and hands. Childhood was time of soaking memory, of learning through living, of carrying tradition forward. Thus children grew wise not only in chores and games, but in stories, songs, prayers, and crafts. Their learning was humble, yet it built lives steady, rooted, and strong. Duranden in Belav, never as whispered at hearth or shouted in field, lay the sage truth to learn was to belong, to inherit the wisdom of ancestors, and to pass it on again. For medieval children, faith was not distant teaching, but daily presence. Bells roped their hours, candles lit their prayers, processions filled their eyes with color and sound. From their earliest days, the church shaped their sense of wonder and belonging. The first lesson was the sign of the cross. Small fingers guided by mother or priest traced forehead, chest, and shoulders. Awkward at first, soon natural born breath, it became shield against fear and symbol of identity. Children followed pairs to church, tiny feet shuffling on stone floors, eyes wide at flicker of lamps, the vastness of nave, glow of stained glass, scent of incense, all overwhelmed and delighted young senses. Candles fascinated most, flames swayed in draughts, casting shadows that danced on pillars. Children stared, mesmerized, feeling that light itself was alive, whispering secrets of heaven. Priests' investments seemed larger than life. Their robes glimmered with gold, their voices rose in chant, their gestures carried weight. Children felt even before understanding words. Ritual taught reverence before meaning was learned. Processions dazzled, banners waved, relics glowed in sunlight, hymns lifted through air. Children clutched flowers or small candles, walking proudly beside elders, feeling part of something vast. Feast days were marvels. On Christmas, midnight mass filled churches with song, children drowsy yet enchanted by candlelit mystery. On Easter, bells rang loud, flowers crowned altars, joy burst from every voice. Saints became companions of childhood. Parents spoke of St. Nicholas guarding little ones, St. Margaret protecting girls, St. George defeating dragons. Children prayed to saints, to friends, whispering hopes before sleep. Confession came early. Boys and girls knelt awkwardly, whispering small faults, quarrels with siblings, stolen fruit, forgotten prayers. Priests observed with gentle words, teaching mercy. Surely Rees rules. Children learned hymns by ear. Their voices rose shrill but sweet, filling choirs with innocence. Songs taught doctrine, but also joy, planting melodies that lingered lifelong. Holy water fascinated. Children dipped fingers, sprinkled brows, sometimes splashed playfully before stern looks reminded them of reverence. Yet even play carried sense of blessing. At baptisms, children watched the infants welcomed into faith. They remembered their own rites dimly, but seeing others bound them again into communion of saints. During sermons, attention wandered. Boys traced shapes in dust. Girls whispered rhymes, yet ears still caught phrases. Heaven, joy, hell, fire, Christ, mercy, even half-heard words shaped hearts. Fasts taught discipline. Children were told to eat less, to pray more. Hunger felt sharp, yet pride glowed when they shared sacrifice with poets and saints. Almsgiving was lesson in compassion. Children placed coins or bread into poor hands, learning that charity was as holy as prayer. Their small gifts carried weight beyond size. Elders told of miracles in church, candles that never burned out, relics that healed, voices heard in stillness. Children listened wide-eyed, convinced they lived in a world alive with holy presence. Pilgrims inspired awe. Children saw them enter villages with staffs, badges, and tales of distant shrines. They dreamed of journeys, imagining saints waiting at every road. The calendar itself was teacher. Advent candles, Lent ashes, Easter lilies, Pentecost flames. Children learned seasons of faith before they could reckon. Months, time was measured in holy days. Some children dreamed of cloisters. Boys imagined themselves chanting in monasteries. Girls pictured veils and candles in convents. Their vocations were born from glimpses of sacred life. Yet faith was not only solemn festivals mingled prayer with joy. Maples blessed, feasts shared, dances offered to saints. Children laughed while praying, proving holiness and delight would walk hand in hand. Fear was also teacher. Elders warned of sin. Priests spoke of judgment. Windows showed devils dragging souls. Children trembled, yet fear taught reverence and pushed them toward prayer. Comfort came too. Saints were near, angels guarded beds. Christ loved the innocent. Children fell asleep, believing heaven itself watched over them. Families prayed together. Mothers led rosaries. Fathers recited psalms. Siblings joined voices. These moments wove unity, binding children into faith thread into cloth. Elders said children prayers were strongest. Their innocence made words pure, their voices sweet before God. Villagers sometimes asked little ones to pray for sick or troubled, trusting their pleas most dearly. The first food taught lessons of faith, sweet cakes at Easter, fish at Lent, blessed bread at harvest. Children learned that meals could be prayer, tape hands, holy Eid altar. At night, Lullabies mingled with psalms. Mothers sang of angels. Fathers whispered blessings. Siblings joined in soft rhymes. Sleep itself became prayer. Faith wrapped in dreams. Thus children grew with faith woven into every breath. Church bells, candles, saints, and songs shaped their days. Even before they knew doctrine, they knew awe, devotion, and wonder. So the faith of little ones was simple yet profound. To cross themselves, to sing, to pray, these small acts bound them to God, to family, to all Christendom. If daily life was work and prayer, festivals were bursts of color and delight for children. Feast days and fairs were the brightest moments of the year, when games filled the square, sweetmeats filled their hands, and wonders filled their eyes. May Day was most beloved. A tall pole was raised, ribbons streaming, flowers tied in garlands. Children danced in circles, weaving bright patterns with steps and laughter. The village rang with music, joy blossoming like spring itself. Fairs bought marvels, jugglers tossed knives and bowls, minstrels strummed lutes, puppet shows told tales of saints and heroes. Children pressed forward in crowds, eyes wide, mouths open with wonder. Sweetmeats were treasures of festival, honey cakes, candied nuts, roasted apples, rare delights savored slowly. Sticky fingers and happy smiles told stories sweeter than words. Parades dazzled young eyes, banners painted with saints, priests carrying relics, villagers dressed in best, children waved flowers, marched proudly, and felt part of holy spectacle that stretched from earth to heaven. Dames spilled into streets, sack races, wrestling, hoop-rolling contests, laughter rose above bells. Children cheered one another, quarrels forgotten in joy of play. Animals were part of festivals too. Horses pranced in jousts, dogs ran races, even geese were chased for prizes. Children squealed with laughter, caught between Amazon and mischief. Midsummer fires burned high. Children lipped small flames holding hands, shrieking with glee. Sparks rose into night with stars, and villagers said, leaping fire, right luck and health for year ahead. Christmas brought magic of its own. Churches glowed with candles, carols filled air, feasts spread across tables. Children marveled at greenery hung indoors, at stars shining in frosty sky, at gifts of bread or fruit placed in small hands. Easter was joy renewed. After long fast of Lent, bells rang, lambs roasted, eggs painted bright. Children hunted eggs hidden in straw, laughed at tricks, and felt new life blossom around them. Saints' days mixed solemn with play. After processions ended, squares filled with dancing, stalls sold trinkets, children played mock battles with sticks. Faith and fun walked hand in hand. Traveling performers enchanted children most. Storytellers spoke of knights and dragons, jugglers amazed with daring feats, Musicians drew even shy little ones into dance. Festivals turned villages into theaters of delight. Children saved small coins for trinkets, tin whistles, painted pins, bright ribbons. Each purchase was treasure, carried proudly long after festival ended. At harvest festivals, children carried sheaves, sang hymns, and watched then. First fruits were blessed. Then came feasting bread fresh from ovens, cider sweet, tabes groaning with plenty. To eat until full was rare wonder. Masks sometimes appeared, boys dressed as fools, girls as queens, children pretending to be beasts. Laughter mingled with music, play mingled with mystery. Elders told stories by fire after festivals, children still sticky with sweets and drowsy from play, listened wide-eyed to tales of past wonders, weaving memory and legend together. Quarrel were rare at festivals, even rivals played side by side, sharing laughter, joy dissolved divisions, at least for a day, and children felt unity, natural at sunlight. The village greens rang with music, flutes, drums, and voices blended in song. Children clapped, spun, and sang until voices cracked, their joy carrying far into night. Sometimes plays were performed. Actors in simple costumes told gospel stories or saintly legends. Children laughed at comic villains, cheered heroes, and learned through delight. At dusk, festivals grew gent. Lanterns glowed, families sat together, children rested heads on laps, bells tolled softly, music slowed, joy mellowed into peace. Fairs brought strangers too, merchants with bright fabrics, pilgrims with badges, jugglers with accents from afar. Children gaped at faces and goods, their world widening with every meeting. The air of festivals was scented with food, roasting meats, spiced wine, fried cakes. Children sniffed eagerly, tugging sleeves for treats. Hunger turned into happiness in these rare feasts. Prizes were simple but treasured, a cake for winning race, a ribbon for best song, a garland for dance. Children wore them proudly, proof of joy remembered. Even chores disappeared on festivals. Children were excused from work, free to run and play. The release itself was gift, felt in every laugh and leap. Fires closed many feasts. Children sat with families, faces glowing in light, songs drifting into night. Flames seemed holy, carrying prayers and laughter alike toward heaven. Festivals ended, but memory lingered. Children played gay, learned in fairs, sang songs from feast days, cherished trinkets. Joy became part of daily life, echoing long after. So festivals of joy gave children more than sweets and games. They gave wonder, memory, and belonging, moments widths. Earth felt thick heaven widths. Laughter rang like prayer. Childhood in the Middle Ages was filled with laughter and games, yet shadows lay close at hand. Life was fragile, illness swift, hunger common, and sorrow never far. These shadows gave weight to joy, reminding families that every smile was a treasure. Infant mortality was high. Many children never lived past their first years. Mothers held newborns with both love and fear, whispering prayers over cradles, knowing each breath was fragile gift. Fevers struck suddenly, a child healthy at dawn but weakened by dusk. Herbs were brewed, relics touched, candles lit, but healing was uncertain. Families kept vigil through nights, praying for dawn with hope still alive. Hunger rocked men's childhoods. Poor harvests meant smaller meals, bread stretched thin, bellies action. Children grew used to hunger, but its ache lingered, shaping both body and memory. Accidents were common. A fallen field, a burn by hearth, a slip in stream, all carried risk. Parents watched anxiously, knowing danger lurked in daily life. Plagues terrified villages, rumors of sickness spread faster than wind. Children were not spared, the coughs and fevers broke hearts. Families clung to saints, carried relics, sought holy wells, desperate for mercy. Death of children was mourned deeply. Small coffins, white shrouds, candles flickering in church aisles, yet comfort was found in faith. Priests reminded parents that baptized children became angels in heaven. Siblings felt sorrow keenly. They lost playmates, companions, partners in games and chores. Silence where its laughter had been weighed heavily on hearts. Hunger sometimes turned play somber. Games ended early when weakness set in. Songs faded when stomachs ached. Children learned early the weight of scarcity. The initial hit shroud, and this now the life isn't an illness, they played when strength allowed. Joy sprang up like wildflowers between stones, stubborn and bright. Parents feared evil spirits. Illness or misfortune was sometimes blamed on curses or witches. Amulets, prayers, and blessings guarded children, fragile defenses against unseen dangers. Holy water was sprinkled over sickbeds, relics touched to small foreheads, psalms chanted through tears. Faith gave comfort when medicine was scarce. Work brought its dangers. Children tending animals risked kicks and bites. Fetching water meant slip on icy paths. Yet work brought what even little ones carried burden of survival. Loneliness haunted orphans. War, famine, or plague sometimes left children without. Fairs, villages cared when they could. Monasteries offered refuge, but sorrow lingered in hearts of the young. Fear of wolves and wild beasts also shaped childhood tales, warns of forests. Parents cautioned not to stray. Children learned early that the world held danger, bell, and wonder. Yet even sorrow carried lessons. Compassion grew in hardship. Children learned to share food, to comfort sick, to pray for lost. Their hearts were shaped by shadows, P.B.U. But childhood. Festivals felt brighter after famine. A sweet tasted sweeter. when hunger had been endured. A laugh felt deeper after tears. Shadows sharpen in joy, making it shine more brightly. Mothers often spoke softly to children. Every day is gift, every breath is blessing. Hadra taught gratitude, weaving resilience into tender hearts. The village mourning dead when child was lost. Bells tolled, neighbors dead, bread and ale shared in grief. Sorrow was communal, never carried alone. Legends comforted the young elders told of saints who carried children to safety, of angels guiding souls. Stories gave hope that no child was vet abandoned, not in life nor death. Some children bore scars from hardship, limps from accidents, weakness from famine, sorrow from loss. Yet they carried on, proof of endurance, teachers of resilience to those around them. Faith wrapped shadows in light. Families believed suffering united them to Christ, that sorrow drew them nearer to saints. Hard-heard became thread of devotion, not only of grief. Children prayed earnestly in shadows, their voices rose pure, pleading for healing, food, safety. Elders said such prayers were strongest of all, born from innocence and need. When healing came, when hunger lifted, when storms passed, gratitude filled hearts. Shadows taught thanksgiving more deeply than childhood was fragile, yet strength grew from fragility. Shadows shaped souls. Thus children of the Middle Ages knew both laughter and tears. Their beams sparkled, their songs rang, yet always with shadows near. Life was precious, but it was never certain. So childhood's story was woven of both joy and sorrow. Shadows darkened paths, but faith lit lanterns and love carried children through. As children grew, play gave way to labor. By 7 or 8, little ones were no longer only companions of fields and hearths, but workers in their own right. Childhood blended into duty, and hands small and eager took on tasks that shaped body and soul. In fields, boys followed fathers. They led oxen slowly, scattering seed, or carried water to weary workers. Their shoulders strained with bundles, their bare feet hardened on stony paths. Each day added strength, each chore a lesson in endurance. Girls stayed closer to hearth and garden. They spun wool on small spindles, stirred pots, fetched water, cared for younger siblings. Work was constant, yet pride stirred in learning skills that mothers and grandmothers had long carried. Apprenticeships began early. A boy might be bound to blacksmith, learning to bellows fire, hammer nails, carry heavy wood. A girl might serve weaver or brewer, watching hands skilled with thread or ale. Childhood freedom narrowed into craft. Masters demanded obedience. Tasks were small at first, sweeping floors, fetching tools, tending fires, but each step prepared for greater responsibility. The path from apprentice to craftsman was long, and it began in youth. Not on labor was skilled. Many children worked as servants in noble households, scrubbing floors, tending fires, carrying water. Their days were long, their duties humble, yet even this service was path to survival. In villages, children helped herd animals. They drove sheep to pasture, watched cows, guarded geese. Alone in fields, they sang songs or carved sticks. Half play, half vigilance, training both patience and care. Harvest wall hands, boys swung sickles, girls bound sheaves, little ones carried baskets, laughter mingled with sweat, for work shared softened burdens. Children felt pride in joining village greatest task. In winter, work shifted, children spun wool, patched clothes, mended tools, chopped wood. They learned thrift, turning scraps to usefulness, warming hands by hearth between tasks. Trade-bound children into wider world apprentices learned to weigh goods, count coins, bargain in market. Even simple errands became lessons in commerce and trust. Discipline was slicked, masters corrected harshly, parents scolded firmly. Mistakes could mean wasted grain, ruined cloth, or danger at forge. Childhood's softness gave way to seriousness of labor. Your pride grew too. A well-made spindle, a strong basket, a loaf baked without flaw. Each small triumph shone. Praise from elder hands encouraged young ones, proving their labor mattered. Then the festivals interrupted labor, but even then work lingered. Children carried benches, fetched ale, swept squares. Service mingled with joy, never far from hand. Faith guided labor. Priests reminded children that work was prayer, that each honest task honored God. Sweeping floor, tending fire, or mending cloth became offerings or holy end psalms. Sons dreamed of guilds, of becoming full craftsmen, wearing aprons with pride, marking wares with signs of mastery. Daughters dreamed of managing households, brewing ale, weaving cloth, carrying wisdom of foremothers. Not all dreams were granted. Poverty sometimes forced children to wander, seeking masters elsewhere, serving strangers. Work was survival, and survival was never certain. Still, labor bonded generations. Children repeated gestures of ancestors, using tools worn smooth by years. They felt continuity in craft, pride in belonging to chain of skill stretching backward and forward. Work shaped friendships. Boys carried bundles side by side. Girls spun wool together, laughter rising between chores. Bonds grew stronger in sweat than in play. Elders reminded youth, what you do with hands you carry in heart. Work was not only skill but character, shaping patience, humility, and endurance. Some children served monasteries, tending garden, carrying water, lighting candles. Their days were long but holy, training both body and spirit for future vows. Learning letters sometimes mingled with labor, a boy copying accounts in shop, a girl reading psalm in convent. These were rare but treasured, proof that mind too could work. Children learned to endure weariness, muscles ached, hands blister, backs bent, yet laughter still found them, turning toil into companionship, sorrow into resilience. In markets, apprentices displayed goods with pride. Their voices echoed calls of masters, their hands arranged wares with care. Each sale was victory, each coin proof of skill. Work sometimes left scars, burns from forge, cuts from sickle, splinters from loom. These marks were badges of growth, etched into skin testimony of childhood labor. Les jesbos at dinero at wasiru, los legban tenmen kudes, Aaron through 30 of the fight on it, stern, natural, dar kan hadan the skin. Yet, despite hardship, joy lived in small victories. A loaf baked golden, a spindle spinning smooth, a field cleared in time. Pride carried children through weary hours. Thus childhood gave way to work, gently but firmly, from games with hoops and dolls to tasks with sickles and spindles. Children grew into labor that shaped not only hands but hearts. So the medieval child, once cradled at hearth, stood in fields, shops, and cloisters. Work taught endurance, pride, and devotion, guiding small souls towards place in world-great tapestry. Childhood was not walked alone in lanes and fields, at hearths and streams. Friendships bloomed, companions in games became allies in chores, partners in learning, and sometimes lifelong kin through marriage or guild. The first friendships were forged in play. Children chasing hoops, rolling balls, or weaving daisy chains found joy not only in games, but in laughter. Shared bonds formed quickly, sealed with giggles and clasped hands. Quarrel came often, a toy snatched, a shove in gain, a race disputed. Tears flowed, tempers flared, yet forgiveness came just in swiftly. By dusk, quarrels were forgotten and games began anew. Work deepened ties, boys carried wood side by side, girls spun wool together, laughter rising between chores, shared burdens lightened weight, and friendship grew from sweat, zeet, well at play. Secrets bound companions. Children whispered dreams and fears, promised loyalty with clasped fingers, invented oaths and signs. Trust was planted early, nurtured by confidence and kept promises. Festivals drew friends together. They danced at maples, shared sweets at fairs, sang songs in circles. Joy magnified when shared, and memory of festival days lingered for years. Adventures sealed friendships. Children wandered into fields, daring each other near forest edge, building huts of sticks, pretending to be knights or saints. Each adventure, half peril and half play, knit hearts closer. Older children guarded younger, brothers guided sisters, friends shielded smaller playmates. Loyalty grew through protection, and gratitude deepened bonds into kinship of spirit. Sometimes rivalry stirred. Boys boasted of strength, girls of skill. Contests sparked envy, yet rivalry sharpened, growth teaching humility. When pride stumbled and friendship often returned, stronger after quarrel. Shared sorrow knit souls tight. Children who mourned lost, siblings or friends, found comfort in one another's arms. Tears shared built bonds enduring ease. Laughter, learning created companions. Two boys at schools practiced letters together. Girls in convents sang side by side. What one knew, another learned. Friendship carrying knowledge forward. Gifts were tokens of loyalty. A carved whistle, a garland of flowers, a ribbon saved from fare. Such small treasures carried weight of memory, proof of affection, treasure deeply. Friendship was rocked by loyalty and danger. When child fell in stream, another pulled them out. When quarrel broke in lane, allies stood firm. Courage and trust were tested young. Nicknames revealed closeness. Friends teased one another with names own they used. Laughter softening, teasing into affection. Such words carried warmth when spoken even years later. Friendships sometimes crossed divides. Children of peasants played with those of craftsmen, sons of lords with servants in hidden corners. Childhood bonds sometimes ignored barriers that adulthood enforced. Stories shared deepened ties. Friends told one another tales of saints or beasts, secrets of family or dreams of future. Words bound hearts together. Wandering pilgrims sometimes marveled at children unity. They saw little ones running in packs, playing without care for rank or wealth, and envied bonds so simple and strong. Some friendships were fleeting, born of fairs or pilgrimages, ending when roads parted. Yet even brief bonds were cherished, remembered with smiles long after. Others endured for life. Childhood companions became guild brothers, neighboring wives, or loyal allies in fields and wars. What began in play grew into bonds unbroken by time. Faith blessed friendships. Priests reminded children that Christ caught disciples friends, and that loyalty was holy. To keep a promise, to stand by a companion, was itself act of devotion. Even quarrels taught lessons, to argue, to forgive, to reconcile. These trained souls in patience and mercy. At night, children whispered secrets in shared beds, promised never to part, spoke dreams of journeys and lives to come. Such words glowed like embers, warming hearts for years. In sorrow, friendships were refuge. When food was scarce or illness struck, companions shared what little they had, offering comfort when families could not. Laughter remained the true sign, to share joy, to giggle at foolishness, to sing together. These were roots of friendship, stronger than quarrels, deeper than time. Thus childhood was not solitary but shared. Bonds of friendship turned work into play, sorrow into comfort, and fleeting days into memories eternal. So medieval children grew together, hand in hand, heart to heart. Their friendships were treasures beyond coin, shaping not only their youth, but the lives they carried into future. When work was done and games faded, night led children to the hearth. Shadows deepened, embers glowed, and voices rose in story. Tales were the treasure of evening, weaving wonder, faith, and memory into hearts of the young. Elders were the chief storytellers. Grandmothers rocked gently, grandfathers leaned on staffs, parents sat weaving or mending, and words flowed like streams. Children crowded close, eyes bright, ears eager. Stories told of saints most often, Nicholas rescuing children from danger, Saint Margaret bursting free from dragon belly, St. George striking serpent with cross and lance. Such tales thrilled young nuns with courage and faith. Legends of miracles filled the night, wells that healed the sick, candles that burned without end, relics that spoke or shone. Children listened wide-eyed, convinced wonders would happen in their own village. Folk tales mingled with holy ones, animals who spoke, spirits who danced, fairies in forest clearings. Elders warned of danger, yet laughter often softened fear, turning caution into delight. Some tales carried lessons, a greedy boy punished, a kind girl rewarded, a trickster outwitted by clever saint. Children learned morals through laughter and fear, lessons carved into memory. Songs joined stories, minstrels' tunes echoed, hymns were hummed, riddles turned into chants, children clapped softly, voices rising in chorus, rhythm carrying wisdom into memory. Firelight added magic, shadows danced on walls, faces glowed with orange and gold. Sparks leapt into chimney dark. Children felt they sat between two worlds, home and mystery, earth and heaven. Sometimes fathers told tales of knights and kings. Boys leaned forward dreaming of swords and banners. Girls smiled at feasts and queens. Dreams were shaped in story, hopes seated in imagination. Mothers whispered gentle tales, angels watching children sleep, saints blessing homes, Christ's child resting in manger. Such stories soothe fears, wrapping children in peace. Neighbors joined too. Storytelling was communal, spilling across thresholds, weaving voices into one chorus of memory. No child was left alone, belonged to village tale. Winter nights were richest, with snow outside and darkness long. Stories stretched for hours. Laughter, gasps, and prayers rose together, fire crackling in rhythm with words. In summer, tales were shorter. Dusk came late, children drowsy from long play. Yet even then, a brief story soothed hearts, carrying them into sleep. Children asked questions eagerly. Did the saint truly appear? Did the dragon breathe fire? Do angels hear us when we sing? Elders answered with patience, weaving faith into wonder. Some stories frightened devils dragging sinners, spirits wandering fields, wolves prowling in shadows. Children shivered, huddled close, yet felt safe in glow of hearth and strength of family. Dreams carried stories onward. Children fell asleep hearing saints' names, seeing heroes in dreams, imagining themselves part of tales told. Sleep became second storytelling, woven in silence. Occasionally, a traveling minstrel visited. His voice rose with songs, his tales rich with distant lands and marvels. Children clung to every word, imagining roads they might walk one day. Riddles ended nights, elders posed puzzles, children guessed. Laughter rose at clever answers, wisdom hid in riddles, sharpening wit while delighting ears. The rhythm of story was itself comfort. Familiar tales repeated again and then became anchors, steady bells known and loved beyond measure. Children treasured storytellers, grandparents' voices carried warmth, parents' voices carried strength, neighbors' voices carried community. Story was gift of love, not only of words. Sometimes stories ended in prayer. Elders crossed children's brows, whispered blessings, reminded them that angels listened too. Faith closed tales surely long, words did. Silence followed stories, soft and full, fire dimmed, children drowsed, elders smiled. Night embraced village gently, holding hearts in peace. Even in sorrow, stories gave comfort. When hunger bit or illness struck, tales reminded children of saints' mercy, of hope beyond hardship. Words lifted spirits. Much goods bred. When joy returned, stories multiplied it, laughter rang. Hands clapped, faces glowed, and children felt world itself was filled with wonder. Thus stories at night shaped childhood, they taught lessons, stirred dreams, soothed fears, and knit community. Words were inheritance, precious, a land or craft. So, beneath rafters by firelight, with voices rising, children of medieval villages fell asleep with hearts full of tales. Their nights were cradles of wonder, their dreams woven with story. Childhood did not last long in the Middle Ages. Games and stories, laughter and play soon gave way to heavier steps, wider paths, and greater burdens. The journey ahead waited, and children grew swiftly into youth. Apprenticeships rocked this passage. A boy might leave his parents' hearth to serve a blacksmith, a cooper, or a weaver. His days filled with sweat and sparks, his nights with aching limbs. Childhood play was behind him, craft was now his calling. Res belive koftan smulevkes hossen yul. Lilan some learned to spin and weave for household, as brewed ale, as served in noble houses. Others were sent to convents. Childhood softened into prayerful silence, and youth was cloaked in vows. Marriages were arranged while children were still young. Promises made at betrothal shaped futures before hearts were ready, yet they grew into these bonds, finding companionship way duty had placed them. Travel often rocked youth, beginning boys left villages to seek guilds in towns. Girls walked with dowries to few homes. Families wept, prayed, and blessed, trusting saints to guide steps on roads unknown. The church guided each stage. Confirmation rocked, children soldiers of Christ, vows binding them deeper into faith. Youth knelt at altars, feeling weight of adulthood settle with sacred words. Festivals once meant games and sweets, now they became gatherings for work, courtship, and duty. Yet memory of childhood joy lingered, softening old burdens with echoes of laughter. Friendships shifted to companions of play, became fellow apprentices, guild brothers, or bridesmaids. Bonds forged in games proved strong in labor, loves, and faith. Some youth dreamed of wider horizons. Tales of knights, minsters, and pilgrims inspired journeys. Boys carried staffs, girls joined processions, eyes set on shrines, towns, or distant lands. Not on journeys were chosen. Famine, war, or plague forced children from homes, turning youth into wanderers. Yet even in hardship, hope endured, shaped by lessons of hearth and village. The rail is counseled patience, the road is long, walk it with faith, they said. Children, now nearly grown, carried these words like lanterns into shadowed paths. Work demanded more. Youth learned to hold tool without trembling, to finish tasks without guidance, to carry burdens without complaint. Pride came with strength, though weariness came too. Love awakened, glances at fairs, whispers in fields, songs sung softly. These rocked beginnings of adult bonds. What began in laughter of childhood blossomed into vows of marriage. Some found calling in cloisters. Boys entered monasteries. Girls violed in convents. Childhood play turned to chanting psalms, prayers replacing games. Yet even there, memory of laughter lingered, softening silence. Adulthood carried danger. War summoned young men. Childbirth awaited young women. Yet faith taught that each cross was path to holiness, each burden step toward heaven. The village rocked transitions with blessing. Priest prayed over apprentices. Fathers gave tools. Mothers gave cloth. Each child stepping into adulthood was carried by community love. Stories guided steps. Tales once heard by hearth became lessons lived. Saints' courage, heroes' trials, martyrs' endurance, all became examples for youth facing hardships of their own. Childhood seemed brief in memory. Adults are back with longing on games, laughter, and nights of story. Yet they knew those days had shaped them, weaving strength beneath duty. Parents felt bittersweet pride. Their children stood tall, ready for life. The cradle was empty, but hearts were full, for each step forward was fulfillment of prayers whispered long ago. So children of the Middle Ages grew into youth, carrying with them laughter of babes, faith of prayers, lessons of work, bonds of friendship, and strength born of both joy and sorrow. The journey was uncertain, yet never alone. Saints walked beside them, family blessed them, friends supported them. The road ahead stretched wide, but faith lit its course. Thus, episode 14 closes in hope. Childhood ended, but life continued. A pilgrimage from cradle to rave, from laughter to labor, from earth to heaven. Each child was a traveler, guided by faith, bound by love, carried forward by wonder. Though youth pressed forward, childhood never vanished entirely. Its echoes lingered, soft lullabies hidden in memory, quiet chambers. On winter nights, when fields lay silent and fires burned low, adults still feathered hearths to share tales once heard's children. Legends of saints and heroes, of dragons and distant seas, stirred wonder anew. Listeners leaned closer, if they were once again children by the fire, eyes wide with belief. Simple joys endured in quiet corners of life. A song hummed while weaving cloth, a jest traded at the blacksmith forge, the smell of bread rising in the oven. Each carried laughter born in childhood, woven gently into daily toil. Memories found their way into labor. Farmers plow fields, remembered the games once played on those same ridges. Shepherds guiding flocks recalled how they once chased lambs in play. Even weary hands carried echoes of lighter days. Children who had grown into youth sometimes became teachers themselves. Older brothers guided younger ones across furrows. Sisters steadied smaller hands on spindles. The lessons they offered were more than skill. They were bonds of love, shaped by shared laughter from years past. Festivals also carried reminders, the ringing of bells, the rhythm of drums, the scent of roasted meats, the sight of children dancing in circles, all awakened memories in those now burdened with work. Smiles softened faces worn by toil, and hearts stirred with joy remembered. Even within cloisters and guild halls, innocence lingered. A novice at prayer might whisper an old lullaby under his breath. An apprentice carving wood might leave playful marks among careful cuts. In these hidden gestures, childhood continued, like a candle flame sheltered in still air. Mothers, too, carried echoes within them. When they soothed their own children, rocking cradles and singing soft hymns, they remembered being held once themselves. Fathers, when handing down tools, recalled the first time those tools had seemed too heavy in their own hands. Stories were bridges across generations. A grandmother tale repeated by a young mother, a lullaby carried from cradle to cradle. These made sure that childhood was never truly lost, only passed along. Even in sorrow, echoes of innocence returned, a familiar melody sung at a funeral, a childhood prayer whispered in fear of plague or war. Such moments remembered all that the child within them endured, seeking comfort and light. Seasons carried reminders too. Spring blossoms recalled games in meadows. Summer sun evoked laughter by rivers. Autumn winds stirred memories of chasing leaves, and winter snowflakes carried the hush of long nights by the hearth. Each season was both present and remembered. Thus, while childhood was brief in the Middle Ages, it was never truly gone. Its traces endured in song and story, in work and worship, in memory and hope. It was a flame hidden within the heart, small but steady, guiding even the heaviest burden. So youth became adulthood, and adulthood edged toward age. Each traveler carried with them an inner child, unseen yet alive. The laughter of game, the wonder of stories, the warmth of the hearth walked beside them, softening life's long road. Childhood did not end, it echoed. It echoed in fields and cloisters, in guild halls and villages, in families and friendships. It echoed in prayer, in song, in story. It echoed in every heart, reminding each soul of villages their journey began.